some of the other places you've been in? How do you get into sports management? What did you do? What kind of career path did you go on? How did you go along that path and choose sports management as a career?
Yeah, it's funny because it's not the traditional path. I mean, right now, where there are sports marketing programs, sports management programs, journalism programs like at Syracuse. I mean, they're popular. They're everywhere. Probably the majority of the schools actually have them as majors because it's such a popular thing to do now. Based on the direction of kind of how sports has morphed over the years with big contracts and having to sell a lot of luxury suites and corporate suites and things like that to support the teams. It wasn't like that when I was growing up. I didn't even know there was a business. I kid about it, but I didn't know there was the business side of sports. I kind of, in a way, stumbled into it. So I grew up in Catskill, as I mentioned. My dad was a chef growing up, and I didn't know any better, so I worked for him. And I ended up going to SUNY Delhi for 2 years and went into the restaurant management program there. Played baseball, so sports is part of my DNA. Big time sports fan and player, and baseball and hockey were my sports growing up. I actually played hockey in Water Elite as well.
I do have one question though, for those of you, for anybody who's uninitiated with New York State, where exactly is SUNY Delhi?
It's like Catskill. If you look, it's literally like 2.5 hours west of Catskill. So it's in the middle of nowhere. And it's, basically it was like the tech school, right? So hotel, restaurant management, and playing baseball. Like that's what I went to school for. Technically, I think I went to school for playing baseball, which was fun. But like I said, I didn't know any better, and I just went into the business that my family was in. I'm Greek, so the restaurant business is part of you as well. So I ended up going to school. I ended up going to the 2 years, played baseball. I walked on. I ended up going to UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, after Delhi, and continued my education in sport and restaurant. I'm sorry, in hotel and restaurant management. And I played. I was on the baseball team there. Walked on. Never got any playing time or anything. Twisted my knee and ankle, and just had to hang it up. So I went into the real world after I graduated and got into the restaurant business, and basically was in the restaurant business for a good 8 years or so, thinking that was my career. And then as I got older and had a family, I realized the restaurant business is not exactly ideal for the family, right? So when everyone else is partying and going to a restaurant and going to hotels, you're working, they're vacationing, you're working. And, with a family, it's tough. And I realized it was a good time for me to kind of look at my career path and say, what is it really you want to do? And the best advice I ever got was from my dad, who said, it's not work if you're passionate about what you do. So what are you passionate about, and figure it out. And it all always boiled down to sports. I was passionate about sports, but I still didn't have the opportunity. I don't know how to get into sports. So I decided to leave the restaurant business and go into sales. Everyone kind of talked me into sales and said, "Hey, listen, you can sell ice to an Eskimo. You're a talker. Good out there. You got good relationships." So I ended up kind of morphing into the restaurant sales business with a company called Cisco Food Service, who basically sells food and equipment and things like that to restaurants. So it was an easy transition, and I picked up sales very, very quickly. Loved sales, and was traveling around. I was in St. Louis, Missouri at the time. And basically, the way that I ended up getting into sports was just kind of the luck of the draw, going into that path. And then one of my clients was the food and beverage manager of the Riverboat Casinos in St. Louis, Missouri. He was basically the guy I sold to, who bought all the food and beverage from me when I was with the, selling Cisco Food Services. That guy became kind of like a really good friend, like almost like my dad. Like just a really good guy, really good friend. We bonded. And he ended up going and becoming, I don't know how, but he ended up becoming the commissioner of the United Hockey League, which is a very, very minor league level hockey league under, almost as low as you can get.
I remember the United Hockey League.
Yeah.
We had a couple teams play up in Glens Falls.
Absolutely. Barry Melrose and Steve Levy on those.
Steve Levy. Yeah, on the frostbite. Yeah.
Good stuff, man. That's like hockey. You shoot fans, fights, it's great. So he becomes the commissioner of that league. And he knew my passion for sports and selling. And he said, listen, here's an opportunity. Go look at this. He had it in Saginaw, Michigan. I was basically started on as a sponsorship sales guy. He got me an interview. Started on as a sponsorship sales guy for a hockey team in Saginaw, Michigan. They were started in the United Hockey League, ended up going into the IHL as the Saginaw Gears, and it was pretty. It was my entree into sports, and I just from that point I ended up working my way up within that organization from a sponsorship sales guy to the president of the team to overseeing multiple teams in that with that ownership group, and then it really kind of took me on and off on my sports career. And just the way I got there, like I said, non-traditional. I didn't go to school for it. There were no programs back then. I just kind of fell into it knowing that like this is where I want to go, but how do I get there? And kind of scratched and clawed and fought my way to get the opportunity. And ever since then, haven't looked back.
Awesome.